Welcome to First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, the birthplace of Congregational Humanism. We carry on that tradition of free thought today, dedicated to promoting a free search for truth, meaning, and justice. Our web address is firstunitarian.org. I'm David Breeden, Senior Minister. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone, to our weekly assembly for Sunday, September 26th, 2021. We welcome you to our online assembly. If this is one of your first visits or you've been with us many times, we are glad that you're here as a part of this gathered community. After assembly today, please join our Zoom coffee hour. It's nice to check in and chat with each other and see each other's faces. The link will be in the chat, and I've checked it's the right link today. Here's an update from our religious education program. Our older youth, grades 8 and 9, are in OWL, Our Whole Lives Sexuality Education Program, and grades 10 through 12, senior high, are meeting today, both groups here in the building, and of course everyone is masked. It's great to have these students present with each other. We will have no religious education for grades K through 7, either today or next Sunday. This group will begin on October 10 with At Home RE, an asynchronous program. And if you haven't yet registered your young one for our RE program, please do so in the link that will be included soon in the chat. Throughout September, we've been focusing on embracing possibility. That phrase falls on my ear as future forward and positive. I wonder, what does it mean to embrace, to get our arms around our grief for the future and the present? To embrace, to get our arms around all the ongoing hurt in the world. Let us embrace. Let us get our arms around the possibility of compassion for our neighbors. Embrace our gratitude for this loving community. And embrace the way that it always has been is not the way it will be, and in fact may not be the best way for going forward. However we go forward, let's get our arms around, embrace what it means to do so in community. Come, let us gather for assembly.
We light this chalice today with the seventh of the UU principles, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And if you will join me in our congregational covenant from home, love is the spirit of this place and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
la puerta, señora, sírvame un canelacito, deme un hito, deme otrito, hasta quedar chumadito. Abra la puerta, señora, sírvame un canelacito, deme un hito, deme otrito, hasta quedar chumadito. Abra la puerta, por favor, quiero olvidar lo que es dolor, que estoy chumao y que caray, ya voy entrando en el humor.
Toda la noche pasaré junto a mi longa con amor, porque mañana lloraré mi soledad y mi amargo.
Que estoy chumao y que caray, ya voy entrando en el humor. Abra la puerta, señora, sírvame un canelacito, deme un hito, deme otrito, hasta quedar chumadito. Abra la puerta, señora, sírvame un canelacito, deme un hito, deme otrito, hasta quedar chumadito. Abra la puerta, por favor, quiero olvidar lo que es dolor, que estoy chumao y que caray, ya voy entrando en el humor.
Toda la noche pasaré junto a mi longa con amor, porque mañana lloraré tu soledad y mi amargo.
Que estoy chumado y que caray, ya voy entrando en el humor.
Saquenita, mi gallo.
Since our founding in 1881, members' and friends' support of First Unitarian Society has been essential for our ongoing mission. Our Sunday assemblies, community celebrations, cultural enrichment, and work in social justice come to you with the hard work of our dedicated staff and volunteers. Your contributions will help assure the continuing work of First Unitarian Society. Give now at PayPal, the Give Plus app, or firstunitarian.org/donate. Thank you.
On Sundays when we gather, we take a few minutes to reflect on the joys, sorrows, and milestones of the human experience. We do this so that we stay in touch with our own humanity. We do this to remind ourselves of the value of a moment of stillness. And we do this so that no one among us is alone, either in celebrating joy or in facing the burdens of life. This morning, we simply take a moment of silence to reflect on the challenges and heartbreak going on in our lives and in our world. We pause to say out loud that these are hard times, difficult times for all kinds of people. And we remind ourselves to try to be gentle with ourselves and others. And we pause for a moment of gratitude as we hold in our thoughts all those who are taking on the big and small challenges of life, and who are leading with justice, service, and compassion. Let us now share a moment of silence.
And we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give, we have our hearts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer.
Sociology of religion, religious ethics, cultural sociology, social movements, critical theory, Africana studies, and Latinx cultural studies. That's a lot to be a specialist in, and that's why you're going to enjoy listening to him today. In addition to teaching at Drew, he has also taught at Princeton Theological Seminary, New Brunswick Theological Seminary, Vanderbilt Divinity School, the College of New Jersey, and Mercer County Community College. In the American Academy of Religion, he serves on the Committee on the Status of Racial and Ethnic Minorities in the Profession and on the Steering Committee for Religion and Politics. He currently serves the larger Unitarian Universalist movement as a member of the UUA's Commission on Institutional Change, where he's done some great work. And in recent years, his denominational service included a term on the Religious Education Credentialing Committee and the growing Racial Justice Initiative. He's also co-chair of the UU Legislative Ministry of New Jersey's Dismantling Racism Group, and he helped launch the Drew